Hi, and welcome to Newswire LA. I'm your host, Chin Thomas Angsey. Today we're beginning our comprehensive election coverage by taking a look at what's going to prove to be one of the most interesting races on November 6th. That is the race for Los Angeles County District Attorney. After the June 5th primary race, we had two people rise from the fray. The first is Alan Jackson. The second, Jackie Lacey. So what we want to do is we want to prepare you folks to go to the polls and vote for the person you think will make the best district attorney for the county of Los Angeles. So what we've done is we've invited the candidates to come and sit down with us. The first to accept, Alan Jackson. And right now he is sitting in downtown Los Angeles with my colleague, Jamie Wright. And right after we come back from the credits, I'm going to give you a very quick recap of the June 5th election, and then we're going to throw it to Jamie Wright in downtown Los Angeles for an unscripted, unedited interview with Alan Jackson, right after this. What I want to do before I throw you to my colleague Jamie Wright in downtown Los Angeles is to take a look at the June 5th primary nominating elections. As we said earlier, this election on November 6th is proving to be a very interesting one, especially when it comes to the district attorney's race. What I want to do is give you a recap of what happened on June 5th, because what happened that day actually sets the stage for what's going to happen in November. So let's take a look at some graphics which are coming up right about now. I'm going to take a look at the race from the bottom up. I want to start with the person in the 6th position, John L. Briault III. John L. Briault is an assistant district attorney in the office. In fact, with the exception of Carmen Trutanich, everyone in this race is a member of the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. John L. Briault III captured 27,695 votes, and that accounts for 3.45% of the total votes cast on that day. John L. Briault got into the race very late. In fact, he got in so late that he was unable to set up a website for himself or his campaign. Finishing above him in the 5th position is ADA Bobby Grace. Bobby Grace captured 42,009 votes, accounting for 5.23% of the total votes cast. Finishing very far ahead of Bobby Grace in the 4th position is Danette E. Myers. Danette E. Myers captured 108,271 votes for 13.47% of the votes cast on that day. We had the honor of interviewing Ms. Myers just 2 weeks before the election here on Newswire LA. I want to take a moment and throw you back to some highlights from that particular interview. What separates Danette Myers from all of those other candidates who are in the race?
Well, first of all, Steve Cooley's not termed out. I think he's just not going to seek re-election for a 4th term. What makes me different from everyone else is, first of all, I've been elected before. I was elected as the president of Los Angeles County Bar Association, which is the largest local voluntary bar association in the nation. So that sets me apart. I have a unique understanding of the justice system, not just the criminal justice system, but the entire justice system. And I think that the other candidates don't have that broad perspective like I do. Additionally, I have been endorsed by the Democratic Party of Los Angeles County. No other candidate has been endorsed. I've been endorsed by 16 Democratic clubs. The former DA of LA County, Gil Garcetti, has endorsed my candidacy, as well as 3 mayors and 2 city councilmen. I think that sets me apart from the other candidates. Additionally, I have a 3-pronged goal to do in the DA's office. First of all, I'm independent of Steve Cooley. And I think that a lot of the people running are not independent of Steve Cooley. I have my own agenda that I'd like to set for the DA's office. I want to reform the criminal justice system by reforming the juvenile justice system. I also want to reform the death penalty, and I want to bring our office back to prosecuting environmental crimes. I think it's really important that we do that, particularly in the areas where there's a lot of hazardous waste dumping that's not really been dealt with. It largely goes undetected, and I think citizens really need prosecution in those areas.
Okay. And that was Danette E. Myers here on Newswire LA 2 weeks before the primary nominating elections on June 5th. We really have to congratulate her on her very strong fourth place showing. Now, as we get into the top three, this is where it gets really interesting. Finishing in third place is Los Angeles City Attorney Carmen Trutanich. This was truly a surprise, and as we talk about the last three candidates, we'll tell you why. Los Angeles City Attorney Carmen Trutanich got 179,095 votes, accounting for 22.28% of the total votes cast that day. What's so interesting is that Carmen Trutanich has probably the most name recognition of any candidate on this list. In fact, he's the sitting Los Angeles City Attorney. And also, he spent the most money in this particular race. Moving into the second position is Alan Jackson. And Alan's with us today here at Newswire LA. He's downtown with our Jamie Wright, patiently waiting. But he captured 190,792 votes for 23.74% of the total votes cast on that day. What's really surprising about this, and I think Alan will tell you in his own words, was that everyone, not just him, not just Carmen Trutanich, not just some people in the media, everybody thought this was going to be a Jackson-Trutanich race. And that's how Jackson programmed his on-air media campaign. For every Carmen Trutanich commercial, there was an Alan Jackson commercial right behind it. And it seemed to be the strategy at the time. But we're going to take a look right now at the top of the list. Jackie Lacey. Jackie Lacey captured 255,831 votes for 31.83% of the total votes cast on that day. And this is the major surprise of the day because Jackie Lacey had no media presence, especially on TV and radio. But she came out of the shadows and took that first place. So this is going to mark a significant strategy change for challenger Alan Jackson. And so now that you know what happened on June 5th, I'm going to throw it over to my colleague Jamie Wright in downtown Los Angeles, where she is patiently waiting with Alan Jackson, candidate for district attorney. I'll see you back here shortly.
Good morning and welcome to Newswire Los Angeles. I am attorney Jamie Wright, your host and reporter. This morning we sit down with prosecutor Alan Jackson. He is a candidate for the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office up against ADA Jackie Lacey in this November's election. Good morning, Alan. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
As an attorney and someone who attended law school, the degree is obviously versatile. What prompted you to join the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office?
Well, Jamie, I guess we'd have to go back in history a little bit to my youth. I was born in Texas. I've been here for about 20 years, but I was actually raised by a single mom in Texas. And I was originally born into a military family. My father was a career military man himself. And so I guess the best answer to that question is public service has been in my genes since I was a little boy. I then joined the military myself when I was 17, committed to the Air Force for 4 years and spent 4 years in the service. Subsequent there too, I went to the University of Texas and then went on to law school. And the entire time I was sort of getting my higher education, public service was always in the background. It was always something that I wanted to consider and wanted to expand upon. And once I started the law school process, as you know, there's lots and lots of learning in law school, and it's not just legal learning, it's learning about yourself, learning about your life, what career choices you want to make. And there was no question that I wanted to be in government service once I got my law degree and passed the bar. The DA's office was the perfect fit, and I have been extremely happy to be in the DA's office for the last 17 years and counting. I couldn't have been happier with my decision, and I hope that there's another 17 years left for me.
Okay. And then let's talk about the fact that you are from Texas, which is, a southern state, and you have been in public service your entire life.
Right.
Los Angeles County is a really diverse county.
It is.
It is one of the largest in the nation.
It is the largest in the nation.
Yes, it is the
Yeah.
largest in the nation.
Absolutely.
How would your background, or is there something you could point to in your background that would make you the successful chief legal prosecutor in such a large and diverse county?
I think all of my background is going to make me a successful leader. I don't think you can parse out single moments in time in someone's background that makes that person a good leader. I think you have to take the totality of who the person is. And being raised by a single mom, I understand what it is to struggle a little bit. I understand what it is to speak to a community that might have struggles. Also, concomitant to that, having a law degree allows me to sort of look at an overview of the county from a legal perspective, from a prosecutor's perspective, and see what it is that the county truly needs. Having spent 17 years in the courtroom, and Jamie, I think that's extremely important. My background is a background of a prosecutor, a leader in the courtroom. Having spent 17 years in the courtroom, I've been speaking to a very diverse Los Angeles County constituency, communities, if you will, one jury at a time for 17 years nonstop. I understand what it is that the communities want insofar as public safety is concerned. I understand what they want from their public safety officials. I understand what they want from their leadership, and I understand what they expect. It's all of that background taken together that I think will well position me to lead the office forward and to modernize the district attorney's office in terms of and under the rubric of a true prosecutor's vision for public safety.
Okay. Let's talk about your leadership roles a little bit more.
Sure.
You currently lead the Major Crimes Division, is that correct?
I'm the second in command.
The second in command.
At the Major Crimes Division, that's right. I'm the Assistant Head Deputy of Major Crimes and have held that spot for about 5 years.
Okay. Now, what is your role what are some of your duties in that role, and how do you think that would assist you in being the chief legal prosecutor?
Well, clearly, it's a fabulous opportunity, or it has been a fabulous opportunity for me to learn what it is to lead the most elite division in the district attorney's office, the most definitive trials, the most defining moments, the most consequential cases. Those are all the cases that we get in the Major Crimes Division. I've been very honored whenever it's mattered most in the last decade or so. The district attorney, Steve Cooley, has called upon me to be the voice and the face of the DA's office insofar as a prosecution is concerned. We had a long spate, I'm sure you're aware, a long spate of high-profile celebrity trials that had not gone our way. When the Phil Spector case came along, and when before that the Mickey Thompson case came along, when the Espinoza case came along and the Fayed case came along, these are all defining moments in the DA's office, and they're all funneled through the Major Crimes Division. As a supervisor of the Major Crimes Division, I not only supervise the trial teams that I personally lead, but I supervise the most elite deputies in the district attorney's office as well. It's a small but very, very powerful division, and it's given me an understanding of what it is to really carry the weight of the DA's office on my shoulders under the white-hot scrutiny of not only a national, but oftentimes an international spotlight, a media spotlight.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the office itself.
Sure.
Obviously, when you're a DA, you're elected. When you're the
Correct.
chief legal prosecutor.
Right.
And I think some people may think, okay, well, it's politics as usual. And perhaps with an elected official in this position, that's how they decide whether or not people are prosecuted. How would you overcome that presumption?
Through connecting with the community. I think that the transparency in this office, as an elected official, I owe that to the community to be transparent. And I would make sure that my door is always open. As the leader of the largest prosecution agency in the country, it is my philosophy that it is not a political position. Yes, it's elected. And yes, there are voters who have to go to a voting booth and punch a card, punch a ballot in favor of one candidate or another. That sounds political. But once I step into that office, Jamie, I can't tell you enough, I can't stress enough that I will not politicize this office. This is a public safety office, not an office for political gain. And some of the decisions that you have to make, the judgment, the integrity, the courage that it takes to lead this office is going to be founded on, in no small part, making those decisions, even if they're inconvenient for you, even if they are inconvenient for your political career, or come at some personal cost. You make the decisions that are right for the community, right for the public. And I think that's how you, as the leader of the largest prosecution agency in the country, I think that's how you visit with, if you will, the community at large and let them know, I'm not politicizing this office. It's not politics as usual. This is a public safety position. I will treat it as such.
Okay, all right. Speaking of public safety, I know that you are the candidate that has the most amount of law enforcement endorsements.
Correct.
One of the sergeants from Montebello referred to you as a law enforcement partner.
I agree with that. I echo that.
There could be a presumption leading from that maybe you are in favor of law enforcement over the people, or it is the law enforcement versus the community. How would you make it very clear that you will be fair?
I couldn't disagree with that presumption more. I believe that law enforcement is there to serve the people.
Okay.
We work for the people. We are certainly, it's not law enforcement versus the community.
Okay.
I deeply, deeply believe that given the fact that we have the commission, we have the responsibility to protect the public safety, to protect the communities at large, that we have to work in partnership with the communities, and we work for them.
Okay.
So I will listen with a very, very steadfast ear for the voice of the community to speak out. Are we doing our job right?
Okay.
And they get to pick, insofar as their public safety leadership is concerned, they get to pick at the ballot box. I hope they choose me. But one of the reasons that I think it's so important that the community understand the power of having law enforcement endorsements, and I'm honored to have many of them, is because law enforcement, police agencies, work more closely with the district attorney's office than any other departments or agencies in the country, or the state or the county. So they know what it takes to be a true public safety leader from the perspective of the district attorney's office. And I will take my philosophy of partnership, not only with the law enforcement agencies, but partnership with the community and acting as a liaison to the community to understand what it is that they want out of their public safety officials. I desperately want to make sure that the message gets out very clearly. This is not us versus them.
Okay.
Folks, we work for you.
Okay.
We work for the community. Tell us what we do right, tell us what we do wrong, and we will, in no small part, we will drive all of our policies. We should be driving all of our policies to protect you, your family, your children.
Okay. All right. And would you consider yourself tough on crime?
Absolutely.
And what does that mean exactly?
It means that we talked a little bit, Jamie, about not politicizing the office. There's nobody that's tougher on crime than me. I don't think I have to. Folks can take a quick glance at my record and they'll realize that I'm very tough on crime. That means, in my view, making sure that we are protecting the public, that there are communities, neighborhoods, schools, families that are being preyed upon by criminals. There is a zero tolerance in the law enforcement community, or there should be a zero tolerance in the law enforcement community for that kind of criminal conduct. If that kind of criminal conduct is afoot, it will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, dispassionately, but to the full extent of the law under my administration. But that's only half the battle. Being tough on crime is only half the battle. We also have to understand that, and one of the things I say constantly is we have to modernize the district attorney's office. And that means taking a new approach, a modern approach to crime fighting. We're not going to handcuff our way or prosecute our way out of the crime problem. We're going to have to reach out to other community leaders, department heads, educators, legislators, folks that are leaders in the community that we might not think about being in a public safety position, and build a bridge with those folks to make sure that we're engaging in robust rehabilitation, that we're engaging in robust intervention on one side and prevention on the other. The only way we're going to get our footing from a crime problem in Los Angeles is to make sure that we are paying close attention to how to stop crime before it starts. And once it does start, let's get the folks that can be saved, let's get them saved. We're not going to simply handcuff or prosecute our way out of any crime problem. So I think that's important to note when someone says, is Alan Jackson tough on crime? Sure he is. But he also has a modern philosophy of how to stop crime before it starts and how to intervene when we can intervene.
Okay, all right. Let's transition a little bit into your campaign.
Sure.
What was your campaign strategy for the June primary?
To win. I don't know how much more clearly I can say it. And I say that tongue in cheek. Obviously, I wanted to win. My campaign strategy was to speak with a loud enough voice that people would hear my message. I didn't want to get caught up just in the noise of a large election. So we were very, very focused on making sure that we had the right message, the right narrative, and we could speak loudly enough so folks would actually hear that narrative and hear that message. I think when your viewers, when the community is given an opportunity to make a decision, an informed decision, which I hope they all do, about their leadership in public safety, they want a prosecutor to run the prosecutor's office. It sort of sounds like common sense, doesn't it? You don't want an administrator, you don't want a bureaucrat, or you don't want a politician running the DA's office. That's not the right fit. People want a true prosecutor, someone with a vision, a modern prosecutor to run the office, and that's what I represent, and I think that was very successfully narrated through our messaging in the first half of the campaign. Well, hopefully it'll continue.
Okay. And so during your campaign and during the process, there were a lot of ad placements. And you and Carmen
Expensive
Trutanek,
ad placements. Thank you very much.
One.
Yes.
You and Carmen Trutanek were kind of neck and neck in terms of the placements.
Yes.
What was your philosophy on having so many ad placements?
I wanted to make sure. I knew that Carmen Trutanek had us beaten in name recognition. He had us beaten in his position. He was the only elected official to be running. And he had us clearly beaten in money. He could raise more money in his position as the sitting city attorney of Los Angeles, the second largest city in the country. He had a huge advantage, a marked advantage in fundraising. What that meant to me was I have to simply work harder.
Sure.
I have to work smarter, and I have to work harder, and we did. We simply outworked everybody else in the campaign to make sure that we were up on television to give a voice and an alternative so that he wasn't the only person speaking. In the June 5th election, it was extraordinarily important that the community and the voters understood there was an alternative to simply someone who had the most money. I was bound and determined to make sure that someone did not buy this election, and we made sure of that.
Okay. And just one more thing about the campaign and the endorsements. You did not get the endorsement of the sitting district attorney.
I did not.
How has that affected you, or how did you feel with that outcome?
Well, Steve and I are friends,
Okay.
and we've been friends for years and years and years. I have the utmost respect for Steve. Steve is backing his friend. He's known her for longer. He's known her for 30 years or so, or going on 30 years. They've had a long, long relationship, and I don't begrudge him backing his friend for this office. But this isn't an office about friendship.
Okay.
This isn't simply an office that you get because of a succession. It's not a coronation, and one person doesn't get to decide. So as much as I respect Steve's decision, and I would love to have his endorsement, as seen in the polls, it's not the end-all be-all. One endorsement is not going to make a candidate.
Okay.
A candidate has to be fully well-rounded. And it's not going to come simply from endorsements. It has to come from the quality and the character of who the candidate is and the message that candidate has to put forward. I think we've been very, very successful in making sure that people understand that I am the prosecutor in the race.
Okay.
I am the prosecutor in the room. I am the modern prosecutor with a vision for how to protect public safety as we move forward, and I think that resonates with the public.
Okay, all right. Now let's talk about Steve Cooley's friend and your opponent, DA
Sure.
Jackie Lacey. I've heard you use words such as prosecutor, bureaucrat,
Correct.
not line of succession. So is that how you distinguish yourself with DA Lacey?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I think the public is going to draw a very clear distinction between Miss Lacey and myself.
Okay.
Miss Lacey, who hasn't been in a courtroom in many, many years, 15 or 16 years. I've been trying cases nonstop for the last 17, going on 18 years. That's a line of distinction. The fact that Miss Lacey has been in management and in sort of internal bureaucracy for many, many years, and therefore not been prosecuting cases in a modern way, whereas I've stayed in the courtroom, I've stayed tethered to the courtroom, but at the same time, I've also managed, led, and supervised the most consequential division in the office. I think that management and leadership on my part, the prosecutor in me, is going to distinguish us from the manager and more bureaucratic side of Miss Lacey. And the jurors, there it goes.
The jurors.
Old habits are hard to break, right? The voters, some of whom are jurors, many of whom are jurors,
Right.
the voters are going to have to make that decision. They're going to have to decide, who do we want? And I think when you ask the community, who do you want? It's a simple question. Define the question simply and allow them to answer it. Who do you want to lead this office? Do you want a manager? Do you want a bureaucrat? Or do you want a prosecutor, a battle-tested veteran prosecutor? I think every time they're going to answer in the affirmative for the prosecutor.
Okay. So how will you craft that message so it's very clear to people between now and November?
Through interviews like this. And I can't applaud you enough for taking the time to sit down with us. This is a down-ticket race. I realize that. We're going to be on the same ballot as the presidential candidates. So it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of noise to get through, to get our message out. And it's folks like you who help in that regard. A lot of folks are going to watch this interview or watch the series of interviews, and they're going to hear what I have to say. They're going to hear what my narrative is, what my message is, what my vision for the future of the office is, and I don't think it could be any clearer how I feel about the office and what management, leadership, supervisorial, and prosecutorial weight I bring to this office and bring to my candidacy.
Let me ask you sort of a provocative question about the difference between you and D.A. Lacey. With the fact that this is a re-election for President Barack Obama, there may be some comparison between the two of them, her potentially winning and being the first black woman to sit in this seat.
Right.
How will you sort of shift through some of that noise to get the message across about you being the chief prosecutor without downplaying the fact that it could be potentially historic?
Sure. And I applaud the idea that there are those who want history made. What we can't do, what we cannot do as a community is put making history and making a point above public safety. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what this office is about.
Okay.
It's far, far too important an office to put aside our credentials, to put aside our qualifications, and simply look at something more surface-oriented, like the fact of race or sex or creed. That is not the job of the electorate in this election. That's not the job of the electorate in picking their next public safety official. I truly believe that the electorate is going to look past those surface area sort of credentials, if you will, and look at the quality and character of each candidate. Who is going to keep your family safest?
Right.
Who is going to keep your streets safest?
Right.
Who is going to keep your schools and your neighborhoods safest? And I think given the full landscape of what both of us bring to the table, I don't think there's any question that I'm better positioned to do that than Miss Lacey is.
And that's it for part one of our interview with Alan Jackson. Come back next week and you'll see the conclusion. In the meantime, to follow everything Newswire LA, look us up on Facebook and Twitter at Newswire LA. That's it for now. And before I end this broadcast, I want to remind you, on November 6th, make sure you go to the polls and cast a vote. Remember, voting is a right that people have fought for and died for. We'll see you back here next time. So long.